Welcome to Healing Generations, a podcast creating a dialogue uplifting the importance of healing, strengthening, and supporting our communities, and that addresses the disparities and inequities in communities of color. Healing Generations is brought to you by the Healing Generations Institute, a collaborative initiative of the National Compadres Network and the Brotherhood of Elders. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on our new releases.
Welcome to the Healing Generation podcast. My name is Ariel Jimenez, and I will be your host for today's segment. We want to take a moment and welcome all our community members from all walks of life. We welcome you, your families, your ancestors, and all of your relations into our conversation. Today's segment is focused on youth voice. Throughout the year, we will get an opportunity to sit down and hear from our youth across the nation. They will share about their experiences, the lessons that they've learned, the ancestral teachings that have resonated within their lives, and anything else that they might want to share. Today, you're going to get an opportunity to hear from a familiar voice. You will be able to once again hear from Alejandro A.B. Ozuna, who has served as our amazing co-host for all of last year. Today, you will get to hear from him as a guest, though. So let's start off with a little conocimiento. A.B., I know that you are familiar with how we run a little bit of this podcast. We're familiar with the teachings. You're familiar with the cultural aspect of it. But let's start with just you. A little conocimiento. Who are you and what is it about you that you want to share with our listeners?
Okay. Hello. Thank you for having me. My name is Alejandro Ozuna, which just became legal yesterday. So I'm very happy about that. I go by he, him pronouns. I have been working with NCN since I was in 7th grade, but I was raised with the teachings because my dad works for NCN. I am a trans youth. I was born and raised in San Jose, California, but I recently moved to Gilroy. And I'm just very excited to be here and to be on the other side of this podcast for once.
Well, welcome back and congratulations on the legalizations of the name change. I am proud of you, but also very happy that you're able to do that. So first, congratulations.
Thank you.
And welcome as a guest, because I know normally you're on this side asking questions. So today I get an opportunity to ask some of your favorite questions to you. So no pressure, but we are going to get into some of those good questions. And you did not get demoted. I know when I interviewed Diego, he was like, so am I demoted now? No, you're still the co-host. We're still going to be able to hear from you the rest of the year. But we just want to know a little bit about you. When we launched the first episode of the Youth Voice, we got an opportunity to hear from you and Diego in terms of your journey. And we just want to revisit that. We know a lot has happened within the year. So the first question is, during this year, a lot has happened with COVID. We started to open up the world again. We started to somewhat get back to normal. It got shut down again. There's many different things that has happened. So within this last year, how have you been able to cope with all the different levels of COVID and all the different just issues within the community?
I think that's hard. I've definitely had a different experience with COVID than most of my classmates have. I am a senior in high school. I recently just graduated, but I took the alternative route of doing independent studies. So I haven't really had a senior year. So that shelter-in-place thing has been my life for the past 2 years. So no really like big social interaction unless it's with my friends. So I think the social aspect part definitely is a struggle for me, especially since the world is opening back up and I'm going to be attending college and all this stuff. So it's a little weird having to like actually see people's faces without their mask on. A lot of shockers. I'm meeting some people for the first time officially. But yeah, I mean, shelter in place was hard, but I was okay with it. I'm pretty introverted, so I was cool with not seeing people for a bit. But yeah, now that the world's opening back up, I got a job at Starbucks. I'm going to SJCC, and I'm doing theater again in person, which is new with the youth. So I'm excited. I'm excited for it all.
So you're saying that when we interview you a year from now, just how we interviewed you a year ago, we're going to get to know what is the freshman college experience for AB. That's dope.
Yes.
Also, you're going to be my connect for Starbucks, but we'll talk about that later. Introvert with COVID, can you explain a little bit of just what are some of the things that help you cope with COVID? I know for me, I'm an introvert, extrovert. So some days I wake up wanting to engage with the world, and some days I wake up wanting to just kind of isolate myself and go into my shell, like if I'm a turtle. What are some, whether it's activities, ceremonies, things that you do during COVID to just kind of keep you connected and keep you grounded?
I mean, it's hard because most days I don't even want to get out of bed. So having to like find ways to kind of force myself to interact with people is still something I'm working on. Every day I make sure to at least text or call with my friends. I have to say technology definitely probably saved my sanity throughout COVID, because otherwise I doubt I would talk to anyone besides my family members. I mean, they're done with me. They're like, get out of the house. I was like, okay. They sent me on a trip to Seattle with my brother last week just to get me out of the house. And I was like, it works. So, yeah, I mean, just finding your way. I mean, I used a lot of like online games to probably interact with people, which if you do, don't do it like 24/7 like me, because then you kind of go crazy like that too. But forcing myself to like take my dog on walks or meeting new people, going to different events to meet new people. I have really bad anxiety, so kind of opening myself back up to COVID with like the mask policy being lifted up and stuff like that. It's been difficult, but I'm like slowly getting used to it, getting used to being able to be in large groups with people again. But yeah, I there's no set way. You just kind of have to deal with it.
No, I definitely feel you on that. I know we recently started running our young men's circles again in person, and then just dealing with, the mask mandate, also social distancing, not being able to shake hands and do certain things that we're accustomed to doing. We definitely had to adapt. Now, I heard you mention, theater again, and I know theater is a big part of your life. Can you talk a little bit about what has theater meant to you in terms of your creativity, but also just in terms of the cultural aspect and everything else that you take away from theater? Like what is it about theater that attracts you and that also helps you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing theater since I was 8 years old. I started maybe a couple months after my grandfather had passed away from cancer. Theater has kind of been with me throughout my whole life. I mean, I look at most of my mentors there as family members. My director was one of my godfathers in my quinceañera. So, I mean, we're all very close-knit community. Helping me, I mean, they've helped me through so much. I remember one rehearsal, I came home and I was 12 years old and I found out my godmother had passed away. And, I had the option of going back to rehearsal the next day or staying home. And I went to rehearsal, and I mean, I'm pretty sure they found out before I even knew because she had passed away earlier in the day. But as soon as I got to rehearsal, they all were loving on me and hugging up on me, and they allowed me to distract myself for the hours I was there and allowed me to kind of just act like everything was okay for a bit. And they're really good at doing that. They all have just like an insane amount of love for all people, which, I mean, my judgmental butt does not know how they do that because I'm constantly like, I don't want to talk to you. So the fact that they just love on everyone, no matter like who you are or your little quirks and stuff, is amazing to me. I've been with them for going on 10 years. And recently they've started doing a lot more LGBTQ plays, and being able to be a part of that and seeing the growth in overall Chicano theater. Like, it wasn't really a thing for LGBTQ youth to be in plays unless they were being made fun of. So now that we're having these plays completely surrounding LGBTQ youth and uplifting them and setting that example for our future generations, it's super cool to me. Yeah, I absolutely love it. It's definitely helped me become more engaged with my Chicano side and being able to learn the teachings of, Actos and Luis Valdez and everything that theater has done to help the Chicano movement. But yeah.
No, definitely. And I think, I don't want to commend you for the different roles that you played within theater, because I know there's moments that you've came in as a support cast, as setting up the stage, as managing, as playing lead roles. So I've seen you do it all. And I'm always just fascinated by it all. I know earlier too, you mentioned a little bit about, anxiety and how you cope with that and overcome with that, but also how that could also be a large obstacle. But I've also seen you on stage and seen, like, just to commend you on House of Mango Street, how you played that role. How has theater helped you maybe manage or cope with a little bit of your anxiety?
When I'm able to play a role on stage and completely transform myself into someone I'm not, it allows me to kind of take what I do on stage and do it off stage. If some days I feel like I can't be me, I can't function as myself, I make up a role for myself and I play it throughout the day. When it comes to plays that are dealing with like really heavy themes, like House on Mango Street, it was really hard to play roles that involved the character being sexually assaulted. And, you kind of just had to put in your mind, you're playing this role to help people who have gone through that be seen on stage and kind of getting their voice out there. And I remember after my first performance of doing that live in front of hundreds of people, which was really intimidating. Because, I mean, even as our little cast, we were struggling with dealing with that scene. But afterwards, I just had so many people come up to me and be like, thank you for doing that. It was really beautiful. It really touched us. And, I mean, I'm sure our whole cast felt like that after that show because there were so many scenes where it just touched on really heavy topics. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to my anxiety, I've never felt it with theater, surprisingly. You'd think I would because you're performing in front of thousands of people by the end of all your performances. And it's a lot, but I don't know. That kind of just gives me a confidence. You're not yourself on stage. You're whoever you desire to be. And it helps.
You're whoever you desire to be. That's true. I never thought about it that way. And some of those topics are heavy. So I like the perspective that you shared, that sometimes when you see maybe something that you've gone through personally, you see it on stage, it allows you maybe that little courage, the little bit of confidence to speak about it and tell your truth. And you don't know who else is struggling with that, right? What I do want to ask is, in your journey, whether it's been in theater or in your high school career, professional career, personal, who has been those people that have helped you, whether it's personally, career-wise, theater, or whatnot? Who have been either your mentors, the people that walk with you in this journey, and who do you want to lift up today?
Oh, there's so many people. There's like so many people that I'm lucky enough and blessed enough to have experienced meeting. Definitely want to lift up when it comes to theater. Rodrigo, who I've known since I was very young, and he's just by far one of my favorite people in this whole world. He really has helped me when it comes to learning all aspects of theater, and even when it comes to learning all aspects of who I am. He was like one of the first persons I ever came out to about being trans, and he admitted, he's like, this is all very new to me, but I'm really happy for you. And another person would be Carolina, and she was in the meeting when I came out to Rodrigo, and she right away was just like, look at that smile on your face right now. She's all like, I wish I could just take a picture of your smile right now and show you how happy you look. So them two really have just helped me through a lot. When it comes to people in general, obviously my family. I have to say that. No, I'm just playing. Obviously my family, they mean a lot to me. But she may not look at herself as a mentor to me because she's still very young. But my niece has probably helped me through some of my darkest days without even realizing it. She's my little defender when it comes to my pronouns. Even when I feel not comfortable enough to correct people, she'll be like, actually, I don't have a tia, I have a tío. So, and I'm like, thank you for that. So she's definitely what I imagine the next generation's going to be like. And I feel like if everyone acts like her and has as much of a golden heart as her, the world's going to be in really safe hands.
I agree. She has a golden heart and is extremely powerful. I was even, sharing space with her not so long ago, but she did call me old, so I was a little offended.
I mean,
I asked her how old she was turning, and I was like, "You're turning 8? That's old." And she's like, "Aren't you like 99?" So, but you know what? She has a beautiful voice. She stands her ground, and she definitely defends the people that she loves. So I always admire her, and love just being around her. Now, we talked about having people walk with us in our journey, having people there to support us. And a lot of us are very blessed to have people like that. Some people may struggle a little bit more. So thinking about those people that might, be feeling alone, who do have people that pray for them and love them, but might not recognize it just yet. What are some words of advice that you might give to those people that might be struggling in their journey and might feel like they're alone in their own journey?
That's such a powerful question. It's difficult to answer because I was constantly surrounded by love throughout my transition. I think to those people who, sadly don't have what I have, which I know is a lot of LGBTQ youth. I would say, just know you're not alone. Just know that if you don't got someone to say they love you, know that I love you and that I'm going to love on you as much as I can, and that you could count on me or someone like me who just wants to give you all the hugs and all the pride flags in the world and tell you you're the best you'll ever be, just as you are. I think that's hard, It's hard not having someone, especially a parent or a loved one, say that I'm going to accept you no matter who you are. So if you don't have that person, know you got people like me out here who just want nothing but the best for you, and that you have those friends that are going to be just like family members to you, and don't take them for granted and accept the love they have for you. Because I know it's hard to do that sometimes, accepting love, especially when you don't have that love for yourself. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you. That's powerful. Because it's one thing, and I'll share a little bit about me. Growing up, I was very much loving to other people, but I struggled at receiving love. I knew how to be loving, but I didn't know how to embrace it for myself. And sometimes we don't recognize those as two different things. So, for the people that are out there struggling that might feel alone, that's a beautiful reminder and a beautiful teaching that I hope that resonates with them too. So thank you for sharing that. It's always good to have people like you who are ready to receive them and ready to just embrace them. So thank you for that. Talking about some of those teachings, a lot of those teachings for me personally, of when I learned to accept love. Even the first time I was in circle and Mario said, "Mijo, I love you." It was hard for me to receive that, but in circle, it allowed me to really step out of my comfort zone and know what that looked like. What are some things that you've received while being in circle, and what are those teachings that you want to lift up?
Being raised with constantly going to trainings, I mean, my safe place used to be going on an hour trip with my dad so he could perform in front, not perform, it looks like performing to me, but teaching all these people these teachings. I mean, I grew up hearing about the bridge story and the wolf story, so I grew up with all this stuff, and my safe place used to be just being there with my dad and seeing him in his best element. So I mean, I've learned a lot. I mean, it may not even be within the teachings itself, but just the environment. I would say for a long time, Círculo was my biggest safe place. Even if I wasn't allowed to not allowed, I was really young, but it wasn't until I was in 7th grade when I finally got to actually be in a Círculo for the first time, which is just a really cool experience, even if I did it with my sister. So it was a really cool experience to just sit in Círculo with all these strangers, and then at the end of it, leave with a new bunch of friends that are going to love on you, even if you don't talk every day, even if you don't check in on each other all the time. You know that if you were to call them up, they'd still have your back. when it comes to actual teachings that I've learned, just kind of put yourself in other people's shoes, take a person as they are, love on them as much as you can, but not too much to the point where you can't love yourself while loving them. I think that has to be one of the biggest things I've probably learned from Circulo, because I'm the same way. I'm a very loving person. My friends always call me the parent friend, but at times it's hard when you're constantly giving love and people forget that you need love in return. So kind of just managing that and dealing with your own self-care while helping others as well, bringing that balance to your life.
Which is true. Which is true. I think, one thing that I want to lift up, I was in Circle actually earlier today with your dad, Mario, and we were sitting in Circle talking about Palabra, talking about some of these teachings. And one of the young men said, one of the things I want for myself is to be selfish. And he shared that, I want to be selfish because I want to do the things that I can for myself to then be able to support my parents. And Mario had to, reorient that teaching and said, Mijo, that's not selfish. That's smart. That's you taking care of yourself because you can't love on other people from an empty think. And sometimes we don't think about it that way. But a lot of those conversations that Circle allows us to have is exactly what you said. Put yourself in other people's shoes. You don't know what they're struggling with. You don't know what baggage they're coming in that door with. You don't know what gifts they might have received or might not have received that morning. So a lot of the time, Circle does allow us to see things from a different perspective and to realize, that's not selfish. That's just self-care. And a lot of us need that because we're so giving people just how you are, so giving to other people that sometimes we forget to give to ourselves. Is there any other teaching within Circle that has really resonated with you that you've taken home?
Oh, that's hard. I have to say, because I've only gone through the young women's program. I've yet to go through a men's program, but what I have to say I take away from that is, no matter how many times I hear about it, I always get so surprised on how much it touches me. It's actually something that I learned from your sister, Citlali, and it's the 5 love languages. And I have to say I took it away from you and her. You told me something a while back that just stuck with me, and it's love people how they want to be loved. And I think that just coincides with the love languages. And I think most relationships and friendships do the best when people love people the way they want to be loved. Because, my love language may be touch, and their love language may be words of affirmation. And I'm not going to hug up on them and make them feel uncomfortable because that's how I show love. I'm going to tell them you're doing amazing and I'm so proud of you because that's how they want to be loved. And I have to say, once I started doing that more often in my relationships with people, even with my own family, once I learned that my sister wasn't really a hugging person, she was more of I like receiving gifts that remind me of you, or I like words of affirmation. I changed it to that. We've been slowly working on our relationship to make it healthier. And ever since I started loving her the way she wants to be loved, we've definitely grown to a really healthy place with each other. So that one has to be another one that sticks with me.
The 5 different love languages. And I think, we learned that through experiences. What are ways that I want to be loved, and what are ways that, the people that I'm connected to want to receive that love? Because those are 2 different things, right? So I think that, and it's fluid. How I want to be loved today might be different how I want to be loved in a week from now or a year from now or things like that. So I think it's always a good reminder that we're in, continuous relationships with one another. So thank you for sharing that. Now, here's one of my favorite questions that I love when you ask our guests. And I think you know which one's coming up.
Yeah.
Because you always ask our guests in the most loving and powerful ways, if you had the mic and the stage, what issue would you want to bring light to?
That's so hard. I always like asking it because I know I could never answer it myself. That's such a hard question. There's so many issues, especially with what's going on in the world right now. I think I'm going to focus more on what I see in myself, and it has to be when it comes to your culture, as a person, because I've been seeing this more and more as I get older, within my own friend groups, within like schools. Love on all other cultures as much as you can, but never lose sight of your own culture. Because I think that's something big that, we're struggling with. That means like if you're Chicano, you don't have to speak Spanish in order to be Mexican, but like, love on the language. Don't forget like who you are. Embrace both your American and Mexican side. That's who you are. You're like that for a reason, and don't forget to celebrate that. Don't be ashamed of, the loudness of your tias and tios or the parties or, certain stuff like that. Like, still appreciate who you are. And I think the only reason I would call that an issue is because once we forget the love we have for our culture, it turns into hate instead. And you see your culture as ugly and you try to be something you're not. And that's hard. And you could love on other people's cultures as much as you want, but once you forget the love for your own culture, you're trying to be other people's cultures, which you're not. You're who you are. You're like that for a reason. You're going to forget all the teachings your ancestors taught you because you're trying to fit in to something you're not. So I think that's one issue that I would want to bring to life. Love on yourself, all yourself, even your culture.
Love on yourself and all of yourself. So culture, what is the thing that makes you proudest when you look at your culture? Like, what do you want to lift up about your culture?
Everything. I love being Chicano. I love being Chicano so much. I wanted to major in Chicano studies because I love being Chicano so much. The storytelling is a big one. I feel like we just have a way of words. And, we may not fit like SAT standard words when we like talk and tell our stories, but we have a way of enveloping people in our words. I mean, hearing Theo Jerry talk, like that's a big one. Like you hear him talk and you're just like, oh my God, I'm literally hanging on by every word you're saying. And these teachings that we carry from generation to generation, we're so embedded in ourselves that we're able to continue that. I mean, there's music in our culture that almost went extinct because we stopped passing it on to generations. So I think how rooted we are and how prideful we are with our culture is something that I really love. And I could go on about being Chicano. I just love it so much.
And no, I agree. I think the storytelling, I've been very blessed that I could call this my job. I could call this my career. I get to hear stories be told from Maestro Jerry, from Maestro Hector, Papa Bear. I could continue naming them, Ozzy, Cisco, Mario, and it's the same teachings, but with a different story, a different journey that just lands a little bit different. And it's a true art form. And I think even just being able to hear your stories too, you're just as a storyteller as I've heard Maestro Hector say that it's like weaving in a basket. And they're just basket weavers with their stories and their words and how it all flows in. So for me, that's one of the things that I love, to just sit and listen and probably talk to, because I can never stay quiet. So then I go and take those stories and just want to tell them in every space that I'm in. So I love that. Now thinking, part of this podcast and those stories, what you talked about was passing it on to the next generation. And sometimes we don't do a great job of that. There's been different barriers that our ancestors encountered that almost prevented them from doing that. Now, if you had to pass along any advice to the next generation, what would that be?
I would have to say advice that I would pass on to the next generation. Coincides in what I've been saying, love on yourself and others, help others grow, especially with all the change that's happening in the world. People are going to make mistakes. I think that's something that we struggle with when it comes to newer generations, is we want everyone to be in line with us right away. But we forget like some people didn't grow up with a lot of the stuff that we're blessed enough to be growing up with. And it may not seem like people are able to grow and change like that, but I promise you, they are. I mean, I've seen change in my own family when I came out as trans, and these are people who are like I thought were the most accepting people in the world, and even they have to change a bit and adjust and grow and learn more about what it means to be trans or what it means to be a family member of a trans person and how to love on them the best you can. So I think let people make mistakes, and instead of yelling right away, try to help them the best you can and try to teach them the best you can, because it's a two-sided relationship. In order for our older generations to help and change and adapt and grow, we need to teach them like more about the newer generations and why we're so accepting now and why we're so loving now, and give them the love that we want for ourselves too. So just be the most forgiving person you can, unless it's hate that's being sprung on you. Then don't do it. Cut them out your life.
Nope. Exactly, right? and that hate could be powerful, but I think the only thing that overpowers hate is love.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be necessarily love towards them or that issue, but loving on yourself.
Yeah.
Now, the mistakes part of it, I'm glad that you brought that up. I keep thinking about Circle. I'm just coming from Circle right now. And we were talking about palabra. And one of the principles of palabra is take responsibility for your actions. And a lot of the times when we hear that and the youth hear that, they think right away, I have to say sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have to own up to what I'm doing. And that's a good teaching, to own up to what you're doing. But the bigger message that was there today was not only that, but we have that in there because we're humans and we're bound to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes we don't think about it that way. That and unintentionally and sometimes intentionally we make mistakes and we hurt people. But how are you able to transform that? How are you able to correct that? And how you're able to turn that into love is the bigger teaching that's at hand. So thank you for that. Now, before we close up, Alejandro, is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners? Whether it's anything that we talked about today, anything we talked about at a different episode, or what you're looking forward to within this year being a co-host on this segment?
I'm excited, man. We talked to so many cool people last year. I had the blessing of being able to be a part of this. Ariel messaged me and Diego and was all like, are you guys ready? Like, are you guys able to do another year? And I was like, yeah, I am. Because it's really powerful being able to hear other people's stories and being able to help them share their stories, which is why I love this podcast so much. I promote it any chance I get to my friends and family and strangers. It's a really cool place to just sit and listen to other people's stories who resonate a lot with a lot of people. Like every person that we've talked to, I feel like has such a powerful story. Like I want to read books about all of their lives because they just have such a way with words. Yeah, I'm really excited for this next year. I know some of the people we're going to be doing in future episodes have a beautiful way of words and are artists in themselves. So yeah, I'm just very excited for 2022 Healing Generations podcast.
And I'm excited as well. I think it's important to have you and both Diego be able to, one, guide the conversation, but also to share part of your stories and the teachings that have resonated with you both. Part of it, I do want to take a moment and thank you for that commitment, for giving us the palabra to continue to support this podcast and continue to guide it in a good way. And thank you especially today for being our guest, because all of that you shared, I know resonated with me, and I hope resonated with all of our listeners. Anything from sharing the love languages to how theater has helped you in your transformation, to all of the beautiful teachings and the beautiful people that are a part of your journey that you're willing to share with other people. And, and more importantly too, to the people that were feeling alone, that are feeling alone, that might be feeling alone in the future, the message that you shared about there are people out here who are willing to embrace you, who are willing to walk with you and love you in the ways that you want to be loved, not in the ways that we think you should be loved. So I think just all of that, really, I just want to thank you for your story. Thank you for your journey, for you being so powerful with your words and and being a true storyteller within yourself. So I'm excited to see what the next couple of months host for us, and to see what the rest of this year really has in store. So I just want to thank you for sharing that. Thank all of our listeners for always continuing to support this podcast, to continuing to connect with us, to continuing to be part of our network, our family, and our extended, familia. So thank you to everybody. Please stay connected with us. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook under the National Compadres Network or La Cultura Cura. And we can't wait to hear from a lot more young folks across the nation, from all of the beautiful stories that they have to share and all of their beautiful experiences and teachings. So until next time, we hope you have a blessed rest of the week.
For more information about Healing Generations and the Healing Generations Institute, visit nationalcompadresnetwork.org and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our new releases.